BAD 1210, welcome to your second full week of this short winter session. I hope each of you are finding time to spend with family and friends throughout this holiday season, but also make sure that you're keeping up with your assignments in the class. This week we're going to cover chapters or modules 4 and 5. Now, in Module 4, we're going to cover 3 chapters. We're going to cover chapters 7, 8, and 9. These chapters are going to discuss how we as managers and leaders start to think about our organizational strategy. How do we set goals? How do we set those incremental goals that lead us to accomplishment of the overall strategy and higher level goals of the organization? This is a very important aspect for all managers and all leaders in organizations, because it's important that employees understand not just the overall strategy of the organization and where the organization intends to go, but what role do they play in that? How do they establish incremental goals that support the higher level goals of the organization so that we can be successful? How do they take ownership of that? How do they become part of the overall process? And how what they do contributes directly to the success of the organization as a whole. Now, in Chapter 9, we're going to discuss how to take advantage of that knowledge and understanding of our goals and objectives, and we're going to apply that to our decision-making process. How does what we know and what we understand about our employees, about our overall strategy, about our goals, all of that together, how does that influence what decisions we make? How we decide what course of action in specific circumstances? How do we decide what resources to apply to different scenarios? How do we decide what people to put in what work groups? Those types of things. So in Module 5, we're going to cover 2 topics outlined in chapters 10 and 11. So in Chapter 10, we're going to start to look at the organizational structure. What does that look like? Now that we know from an employee or from an organizational perspective what we want to do, now we have to think about how do we organize ourselves to achieve that goal? What's the best way to do that? So think about your own organization where you may work now or where you may have worked in the past. And it was probably organized based on functionality. Most organizations today are based on functionality or have some functionality aspect to it. That would be things like having an accounting department, human relations department, a manufacturing department, an engineering department, those types of things. What functions do those groups in the organization perform? Now, you're going to find as you go through the chapter that there are a number of ways to organize. So think about, we talk about functionality. We can talk about geographically separated, where we have a North American department, a European department, an Asian department. Or we can separate and organize based on product line. For instance, Ford Motor Company separates some of their product line out into automobiles, small and light trucks and vans, and then large trucks, the semi-tractor trailers, those types of things, where they build those in separate groups. Now, typically when you start to see this, though, you're going to see that the organization is really a combination of these different types of things. So once again, thinking about Ford does separate into geographical segments. They do separate into product lines. But then once they get to that component, now we start talking about what's the functionality in each one of those types of construction or units that they may have. So these are very important topics over the next week. That's going to give you the foundation of how you'll make a lot of decisions in the future based on your understanding of where the organization is, where it needs to go, what it's doing, and how we're organized. So be sure to review the assignments that are due this week. In Module 4, you're going to have your first case study. where you're going to be given a scenario, and I'm going to ask you to think about it and analyze it and provide a written paper based on that. So make sure you look at your APA format guide and include the cover page, in-text citations, the reference page at the end, but you do not need to provide an abstract with any of your written documents. Secondly, I want you to pay attention to your discussion post. Look back at my announcement about dig deeper, what I mean by that, and pay close attention to that as you write your initial post and as you craft your responses to your classmates. I look forward to seeing your work this week, and I hope all of you had a happy holiday and you have a happy new year, and have a great week. Thank you.